Hey there! Welcome to the Influential Christian Entrepreneur. I'm your host, Francine Sinclair. I've been around the block in the entrepreneurial world, creating and repurposing social media content for experts and CEOs. I know firsthand how it can feel lonely, especially when you're mixing your Christian faith into your business life. So I figured, why should we go it alone? Who said that faith and business can't mix? And that's where this podcast comes in. Join me as we meet influential Christian entrepreneurs who are showing us how to blend business and faith in a way that works. We're here to prove that you can express your faith without compromising your business success. On the Influential Christian Entrepreneur, you're not just listening, you're part of the gang. So let's start this journey together. Welcome to the Influential Christian Entrepreneur Podcast, where we uncover the inspiring stories and strategies of successful Christian entrepreneurs. In today's episode, we have the pleasure of interviewing Allie Bloyd, who is a coach, consultant, and agency owner, and also author of this amazing book, Uncensored America. Hello, Allie. Thanks for being here today. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. Excited to do this with you today.
Thank you. And so tell me a little bit more about what it is that you do, because I know I only had a one-liner, and I know that there's a whole lot about what you do. Tell us more.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a couple of different groups of people that I serve. The first would be the local business owner. So I help local business owners grow their business, sometimes start their business, using paid advertising to get a consistent flow of leads, bookings, and customers coming through the door. So we do that with, again, paid advertising. We also focus on back-end strategies. So funnel strategy, email, text message marketing, automations, and systems. So local business owners was always the primary group of people that I set out to work with. Through the time that I started working with them, I had a lot of marketers and agency owners reaching out to me for help. And I ended up adding that group of people to my programs and services as well. So I also help those agency owners who work with local businesses get better results for their clients and also improve their own business, get better results for that agency business itself. Through the journey that I've had, I have become a seven-figure coach and consultant. So I also help with other people who are looking to get into the info business space. So I have three different groups of people that I serve. Really, it all centers around paid advertising, back-end marketing strategies, sales, automations, and systems that will allow you to grow with less time and more efficiency. So that's kind of the general overview of what I do. I do it in a variety of ways. We have do-it-yourself options, done with you options, and done for you options. So we kind of cover the gamut in terms of what somebody might need. But I love the groups of people that I serve. I love getting to, meet so many different types of entrepreneurs, learn about their business, and create unique strategies to work for those different types of businesses. So it really keeps me on my toes and allows me to, kind of have something different every day. I don't just work with the same type of person over and over.
Over and over. How long have you been doing this?
So I have been in business for a little over 5 years now. Before that, I was a marketing director for about 5 years. I've been in marketing, advertising, design for about, 12 or 13 years now in total. So it's been an evolution, but doing what I do now has been about 4 to 5 years.
Perfect. And so this is called, of course, the Influential Christian Entrepreneur Podcast. And I invited you because through your content, I was able to surmise, I was able to glean that you are a Christian entrepreneur. Yep. And I wanted to know, how did you become a Christian? Have you always been a Christian? Are you what they call a cradle Christian, or did you become a Christian later on?
Yeah. So my family is Christian. And so I have really been raised from the beginning to love the Lord and to know the Lord. That being said, I definitely had, a number of years in my youth where I was not what I would call a practicing Christian. And it was not the top priority for me, but God always finds a way to bring you back. So, that has been a journey through the last, I'd say probably 10 to 12 years of really just trying to grow in my faith and not just be a Christian because my family, raised me to be a Christian,
Mm-hmm.
but really prioritizing my own walk with the Lord. And I've definitely been excited to deepen in my knowledge and my understanding of the Word of God, and have had the opportunity to connect with a lot of other Christian-based entrepreneurs. So
Mm-hmm.
having fellowship in that way has been really awesome as well.
Mm-hmm. And, we've always been told that we shouldn't mix our faith with business because faith is something personal and we can offend people. So those two things should remain separate. But I know that you incorporate it. Can you tell us, well, first of all, do you think that it's something that we should do, incorporate or make faith part of our business? Do you think that's something that we should do, first of all? And if so, how do you do it?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I just had this conversation last night. I'm in a small group Bible study with several other marketers and entrepreneurs, and this topic in specific came up. And the truth is that you don't have to incorporate it into your business. If that's not something that you feel called to do or led to do, I don't think it's something where we should say, if you're a Christian, you must incorporate this into your business. But
Mm-hmm.
I do feel that we as entrepreneurs have a platform, and that platform gives us the ability to reach people and to influence people in a positive way. So, what that might look like for everyone could be a little bit different. For me, it really started with me just starting to weave in things into my existing content. You don't have to make
Mm-hmm.
content that is specific to your faith, but as people
Mm-hmm.
are listening to that content, sometimes just dropping in little pieces of information is a great way to start to sow those seeds and to show people this is who you are. I feel like in my business, I thoroughly enjoy working with people who share the same values that I do. That doesn't mean
Mm-hmm.
that I'm not going to work with somebody if they don't. I have plenty of people that, I have no idea what their personal faith or belief system
Mm-hmm.
may be. But I have felt that in doing that, I have attracted a lot of fellow believers to
Mm-hmm.
me as a business. And that is something that a lot of people say, this was the deciding factor in me
Mm-hmm.
working with you. I felt that we aligned and that we shared similar beliefs. And I want to work with somebody who feels the way that I do, even though it's not necessarily going to impact the quality of the product or the service that you're providing. But I do feel a lot of times, just in terms of running your business ethically and
Mm-hmm.
doing things in a way that are going to align with your values, that is something that people appreciate. So again, it's not something that you have to do. When we were
Mm-hmm.
talking about this last night, I believe that God gave everyone a unique set of skills. He gave
Mm-hmm.
us special gifts. Not everyone's gift is necessarily going to be direct ministry. For
Mm-hmm.
some people, it's going to be supporting others who do have a passion or a talent for direct ministry. And sometimes it's just going to be a one-on-one type of ministry for you and your business. You may not be putting everything out there publicly, but you might have the opportunity in your conversations with your clients to have some of those conversations when it feels like it's the right time. So just telling my story as well of business growth, that gives me a very natural opportunity to talk about that as well, because my faith has been a big part of where I am today. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's done in a way that you don't feel like you're pushing it on other people. You're simply telling your own story, but that people can say, hey, this person is aligned with my beliefs and I feel like they'd be a great person to work with. On that same note, there are people who have chosen not to work with me for those reasons as well. And that's okay. As a business owner, you're not going to be for everyone anyway. So you have to decide, who do I really want to be for? And who am
Mm-hmm.
I okay to not be for? So
Right.
outside of that, you mentioned my book. I have been writing poetry since I was very young. And a lot of my poetry has always been about my faith. I write poetry on a variety of topics, but that's something that I've done, for many, many years. And in 2020, late 2020, I decided I want to publish this book. It had nothing to do with business necessarily. This
Mm-hmm.
was something that I felt was really needed given the times that we were in. And I was able to add a chapter in the book that is specifically focused on faith and spiritual things. There are other pieces of different poems throughout that book that also reference faith and God and the things that I believe in. And in publishing that book, I didn't know how it was going to be received by the business community because, again, it's not necessarily a business book at all. And it was a great reception. There were so many people who loved that I was doing this, that loved that I was standing up for what I believed in, that I was not shy about talking about the Lord. And I think there is a whole group of Christian entrepreneurs out there that are either scared to speak up in that way.
Yes.
Or that maybe they do it and they just really love to see when other people are doing it. So by sharing those things in our personal story or weaving it into some of our content, you can actually encourage other people to speak out as well because they see somebody doing it and they say, hey, you know what? That gives me the confidence and the encouragement that I need to start doing this as well. So if there is a greater opportunity for you to be even more bold in your faith, absolutely do it. But again, I don't feel like it's a one size fits all. I feel that everyone has different opportunities to share at different times and in different places. And it's really about, I think just asking God, what do you want me to do with what I have? Do you want me to speak out about this in a bigger, bolder way? Is this something that is going to be more of a one-on-one type of ministry with the people that I work with? And if you're asking for his guidance on how you should be following his will, I think the answer is always going to be what it needs to be. So it's really, relying less on what we as humans think we should or need to do, and really just saying, God, I want to do what you've called me to do through the platforms that you've given me, with those unique talents, skills, and blessings that you've given me. And I'm open to whatever you need me to do. And then those opportunities are likely just going to start to show themselves to you. So again, not everybody's comfortable doing it. One woman in our Bible study said that, she lived in LA for 30 years. He is in the media and PR industry. That's a very tough place and a very tough industry for believers. And so she felt like she has really been kind of, that part of her had been really suppressed when it comes to speaking out on a larger platform, specifically with business. However, she still is using her platform and her connections in other ways, but that's more of something that she always felt more comfortable doing behind the scenes. Maybe that'll change in the future, maybe not. But I do think that just depending on where you currently are, you may have different concerns about speaking out publicly, while other people in the group are a lot more vocal about it. But again, to each his own in a lot of ways. And I think as long as we are doing what God called us to do, which is essentially to make disciples, that was his call to us at the end of, his time on earth, was to go out and make disciples. So again, does it have to be that you're speaking to a room of 1,000 people? Absolutely not. You can make disciples one at a time. And in a lot of ways, you can actually make a bigger impact sometimes on people by speaking with them one-on-one, as opposed to trying to do it to a big group. But on the other hand, you can plant seeds. You can plant seeds in a lot of different ways that people might be able to take and then say, hey, this is something that I want to learn more about. They might reach out to you about it, or they may reach out to somebody else in their life about it. But that's still a really important part of the process. So, people come to the Lord in a lot of different ways over a lot of different timelines. But I think the most important thing is, where can you fit that in a way that feels natural, that doesn't feel like you're forcing it, and that you feel confident in terms of, if this pushes people away, I'll be okay. But for the number of people that it may push away, it's going to attract that same number of people, if not more, who want to see that from those that they are doing business with.
I have experienced that, and it's really good points. You and I are really aligned in terms of, because we are entrepreneurs, we have a personal brand that we can be multidimensional. We can talk about business, but we can also use our personal stories as a way to weave in our testimony, weave in the gospel where, fit it in some way as it's relevant to our personal story. Because when you're speaking about something in the first person from your own experience, it's really hard to offend someone else. When you're
Absolutely.
talking about yourself, it's not the same thing when you're talking about, this happened to me, then you're saying you should, right? That's a
Absolutely.
totally different, that's a game changer right there. So while not everybody has to be public about their faith, in my opinion, we should, to the extent that we, I guess, feel comfortable, use our personal stories to plant those seeds. Because between this and short story, that's how I came to Christ only back in 2020, because I saw, I don't know who, I don't know when, where, on social media for sure, but people with their personal stories, much of which I rejected initially, but those seeds were planted, which then grew, which
Yeah.
brought me to Christ. And so I think that's why it's so important for us, especially now that there are so many people that have come onto the online space to do business, millions and millions of people in the past few years since we've gone remote. Many people don't even know their coworkers or their bosses in person.
Yeah.
My husband has probably never met his boss in person. So why I think that as Christian entrepreneurs, using our personal brands as a direct ministry, like you say it, could be very fruitful, because we have to remember this is a tool that is being used very effectively by the enemy. And we as Christians probably need to step up a little bit and be a little bit more on the offensive, because that's what Jesus told us to do. Go out into the world and preach or tell the good news to every creature, right? Not just in our little corner. So I think that social media, personal brands as entrepreneurs can be very useful. And another point that you brought up, the whole group of Christians that are scared. I was one of those for 2 years, completely scared, because I thought that it would, that I would lose business, that people would see me in a different way, right?
For
Oh,
sure.
did we lose you?
No, I'm here.
I think we used. So that's one thing that I think you brought some really good points about that. And the last point, and I can't see you anymore. I hope this is just part of the thing uploading, but I can hear you. So thanks for that insight, Allie. I think that really brings it home, and how we as Christians who are entrepreneurs can help increase God's kingdom, build God's kingdom, because you and I agree that the times we are in, which is why you wrote this book, we're in a spiritual war, and we have to use everything at our disposal to bring people to God, and do it in a way that doesn't feel forceful, doesn't feel mean-spirited, which is a one reason why so many people criticize Christians, because in the past, many people may have been their approach might not have been the best, right? And while people will be offended by the truth, no matter how you say it, no matter what you say, the truth is always going to offend people, but the way you say it could make a real difference for sure.
Absolutely. So that's really why I felt like, for me, that poetry was a great medium for me to be able to talk about things in a unique format. Because like you said, with personal stories, it's very hard for people to criticize because you are speaking from your personal experiences. I also felt that way about poetry. It's pretty difficult for someone to get really upset at a poem. And if they are getting upset at a poem, they, should probably ask themselves why. But my goal through my poetry was not to tell people what to think. It was to allow them to start thinking for themselves on some of these topics. It was to lead them through a path and let them draw their own conclusion. And when you can do that in whatever format that is for you, I think that you're going to find you can make a pretty significant impact. We are in very, very difficult spiritual times. Any
Yes.
believer out there that's paying attention, at least, they understand that. And this was also part of our conversation in our Bible study last night. While we may feel like in the past we have not necessarily had that sense of urgency,
Mm-hmm.
there is a sense of urgency now.
Mm-hmm.
And again, there was a sense of urgency before, but I think it's only gotten more and more clear.
Mm-hmm.
So the question that we really have to ask ourselves is, how much do we care about the salvation of others?
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to know everyone personally to care
Mm-hmm.
about their salvation. But if we are in a time where the end could happen at any time, really, no one knows that date or time. Could be tomorrow, could be a year from now, could be 2 years, 10 years. We don't know, but we
Mm-hmm.
do know that everything is lining up as the Lord said that it would. And because of that, people's eternity is on the line. Somebody may have never heard the gospel. Somebody may have never seen anything that encouraged them to look more into the Lord or to start reading the Bible. And one thing that you say could be that catalyst, just like you said it was for you. I think that's so incredible. And it's such a great illustration of someone's social media content. You don't even remember who it was started to plant those seeds for you. You could be that person that is planting seeds that will change someone's entire eternity. And the thing that we really have to remember is there will be a point in which we don't have the opportunity to do that anymore necessarily. And while everyone will not accept Christ, we already know that. We already know that, the gates to heaven are narrow and few will find it, and the gates to hell are wide and many will find it. We know we're not going to change everyone's mind. And in a lot of ways, it's not really up to us to change their mind in certain ways. I think there are times and places to be able to have those conversations that are more, I wouldn't say structured like a debate, but where you do have the opportunity to go back and forth with someone who shares very different beliefs and present them with facts and present them with information that could change their mind. A lot of times it's going to be people who are already seeing things that are happening in the world. I think we actually have a great opportunity with that because with some of the things that are happening, it's never been more clear that this is a battle of good versus evil. And you don't even have to convince many people of that. There may be a lot of people who are not believers or who have never really been strong in any type of faith, but they know what's right and wrong. And they see what's happening and they see how crazy things are getting. And their only conclusion can be, this is evil. And when you have someone who sees evil, it's a great opportunity because what's the opposite of evil? It's good. And
it's good, right?
The only way that good and evil exists is if there are opposing spiritual forces in the world. So I love to ask people, when you see these things happening, do you feel that it's evil? And if they say yes, it is such a great segue into the conversation because they already see one of the opposing forces. And then you can simply use that to say, if you see that this is evil and evil exists, there must be something opposite to that. And if you can already feel those spiritual forces at work, then you're already halfway there. Because believing that we are not on this planet on our own without a God or without consequences, then we really don't, we don't have any reason to think any deeper about the subject. But if you do realize that there are heavenly realms, that there are spiritual forces that we cannot see, but we can feel and we can see the impacts of them, then that just gives people that footing that they need to start to accept that there are things that I may not have ever known about. They were there the whole time. And then a great opportunity to start to learn about them. So, the more crazy the world goes, the better chance we have of sharing this with people who in the past would not have been receptive. And a lot of times because they didn't have a reason to be receptive. Things are going well in life. If you're not dealing with any significant challenges, or if you don't see things going crazy, you may think you don't need God. But it's in the times where you do see how much we all need him, how much morality has been corroding. And again, just what the spiritual forces of evil are doing in our world, then you finally have that reason to say, okay, this is something that I think I may need, or I may be at least open to hearing. So
To hearing it.
yeah. And a lot of people like to kind of mix in spiritual and political. And the truth is, there is so much overlap. It's hard to, at this point, that political events are unrelated to spiritual warfare.
Correct.
They're directly
Yes.
tied. That is how the enemy loves to use his foot soldiers, is through those channels. And you don't have to be overtly political to point
Right.
out what is happening in the political sphere, because it directly contradicts God's word. These are very intertwined in so many ways. And for me, I am a relatively political person. I mean, I've always paid very close attention to US politics, to politics throughout the world. And it is never been more clear that, the political space is ground zero, for this battle. So if you do have a passion for politics and what's happening, use those events to weave that information in there. If you're not, again, there are a lot of other ways that you can utilize it. But I think, we as Christians have really kind of been programmed in a lot of ways to try and separate politics from our beliefs.
Yes.
But they're not
Which
separate.
is why pastors don't talk about anything political at church. And how can you not, if it's so intertwined, right? The enemy uses politics, media, entertainment, education, all of those realms, business. So how can you not talk about those things and completely like they don't exist, right? And you articulated exactly what happened to me, that I saw evil. And when I saw evil, I realized not that I didn't believe in God before, but it just made brought it into focus so much. Like, okay, God before that is this kind of misty, blurry kind of thing, abstract, right?
Yep.
When I actually saw everything happening in the world, evil became so real, so palpable, so undeniably evident that I would have to literally stick my head in the ground to not see it.
Yeah.
And so when you come to that realization, call it discernment, I don't know, you realize that if this is so real, then the opposite also has to be true. And then you start looking for evidence of good and how it is working. And that those things add to the content that I'd been seeing here and there, just kind of came together. And you put that point so beautifully about, us Christians, we don't want anything to do with politics, but I don't think you can really exclude it. I mean, like you say, you don't have to be a political person and you don't have to be in a party or be for a certain candidate, but it is directly related to the spiritual warfare we're having.
And you know what? That has been, in my mind, a lot more of the ways that it is better presented. If you are talking about political things, let's be honest, we're all human. So any political candidate is only human. And that no political candidate is perfect. I don't care if they support your beliefs or not. People are people. I like to focus less on people and more on events or more on concepts. Because if you are going into the conversation focusing on individuals, it is so easy for people to focus their response on those individuals. If you give people anything that they can kind of grab onto to rebut what you're saying, you are not going to show them the full concept that you're talking about. So if you can really remove some of the individuals from the conversation, the parties from the conversation, because there's good and evil on both sides. There are good, people themselves in any party. There are people who I would say are relatively good as a human be, but there are people that are very evil on both sides. So if you make that the cornerstone of your argument, you're going to fail, and you're not going to convince people or show people what it is you're really trying to say. So again, keep it more focused on the topics, the events that are taking place, as opposed to the individual people involved. And you're going to have a lot more success. So my response strategy when I am in these conversations, whether it's on social media or in person, because I like engaging with people on social media. If I'm talking about something, I want to have those conversations. And what you will find is that people who don't agree, they don't actually have a reason that they don't agree, or they don't have any evidence or information to back it up with. And so instead of just letting people kind of get on these rants and get off topic, you always want to keep it focused back to that single topic that you're discussing. And the best way to do that is with a single question as an answer. Stop responding with statements. Start responding with questions. Questions are designed to open people's minds. They're designed to make people think. That's what we want to do here. We don't want to tell someone what to do or what to think. We want to make it easier for them to come to that conclusion on their own. That's the only way that anybody buys into anything, whether it's in business or whether it's in our personal life. It has to be our choice. It has to be our idea. So when people feel like they're being told what to do, their natural response is to push back and to reject it. So you have to, again, get them to open their mind to these concepts by questions. So if someone responds with this big old paragraph about how this is wrong and this person's bad and all this stuff, you have to resist the urge to then respond to everything they've said. And you have to simply ask them that one question that is going to bring them back to the concept that you're actually trying to discuss. So you being clear on kind of what your purpose is when you are posting something or sharing something can be so helpful, because then it allows you to have the tools in your toolbox to better respond. But, in terms of other ways to weave it in, my email content is one way that I talk about some of these things. I talk about Good Friday. I send emails that are focused on Easter and the meaning of Easter. I send emails about Christmas and the birth of Christ, talking about those things as it is appropriate. It's a very simple way to, again, just weave that in there. And if people unsubscribe from those emails because of it, that's fine. People will unsubscribe from emails if you're not doing that stuff. So it's like the opportunity to either try and set yourself apart as somebody who does believe differently and attract the people who want to work with you because of that. Or you can just stay silent, and maybe you won't lose fans or followers or email subscribers, but you're definitely not going to be polarizing, which marketing concept 101, you want to be polarizing.
You're going to be vanilla. Nobody wants to be vanilla.
Exactly. And, in the past, I always wondered, this was years ago when I was learning more and more about the concepts of polarity. I was thinking, well, I don't think I'm very polarizing. Like, I'm not going to try and be polarizing just for the sake of being polarizing. But what I realized was who I am in general is polarizing. My beliefs on certain things are polarizing.
Yes.
But again, it's so great for you because you have to be able to repel the wrong audience and attract the right audience. Doesn't mean you got to work it into every single thing you're ever doing, but people will really appreciate that. And I think that was the biggest thing that I learned when I started to be a lot more vocal about this stuff, is it actually is going to work in my favor, not to my detriment. I was willing for it to hurt me, though. I said, if this hurts my business, so be it. I feel like I cannot stay silent on certain things any longer. So I went into it with the belief that this may not work well for me financially, but God allowed that to work for me so well. And again, it attracted so many people who believe in the same exact way. And because I'm not doing it in this holier than thou
Mhm.
type of forceful approach,
Mhm.
there are plenty of people who don't share the same beliefs that I do who still want to work with me because what I can offer to them
Mhm.
business perspective is still what they need. So I think
Mhm.
absolutely do it in a way that, definitely repels the people you really don't want to work with, attracts
Yes.
people, but still won't push away the people who want to work with you for your expertise, for the products and services that you can provide. So the approach, like you mentioned, the approach is everything. You have
Refreshing.
to go into it with this mentality of I I want to help people. I want to open the eyes of people. I want to play some role in the salvation of others. I am not trying to force my beliefs down someone's throat. I'm not trying to say, oh, well, you shouldn't be doing that. That's not the Christian way to do things. People hate that,
Mhm.
And if we all
Mhm.
look at our own selves, I'm sure we have a lot of sins that we could
Mhm.
list out. We are
Yeah.
no better than anyone else, whether we believe and they don't. We have all sinned and fall short of the glory of God. And the section of scripture we were focused on in Bible study last night was Ephesians 2.
Mhm.
And we've all been saved by grace. Nothing that we have done has saved us, but through faith. We're saved by grace, but through faith is how we accept that gift. Faith is not something that is very difficult for some people. They could come to that faith very, very quickly, and that's it. Then they can dive deeper and try and grow in their own relationship. But giving somebody the information that would
Mhm.
allow them to have that faith, it's
Mhm.
really it's really not that complicated. If you just simplify the whole message,
Mhm.
all you need to do is show people that they are sinners, that they fall short of the glory of God just like you do, that we
Mhm.
all need a savior, and that God
Mhm.
loves you. He loves you like a loving father, and
Mhm.
he wants what's best for you, and that all of the good things in our life are blessings from God, and they need to be approached as that. So that's another really simple way to weave it in is something great happens, all praise to God,
Yeah.
glory to God. Thank you, Lord, for making this possible. It can be as simple as adding that into your content when you're celebrating a win
Yes.
or when you're struggling with something, talking about, praying about it, and
Mhm.
things like that. So, again, does not have to be like the central focus of the things that you're talking about. It's more so,
Mhm.
how can I weave these things in a way that feels natural, that's true to who I am, to
Mhm.
simply plant those seeds and let others learn more about it. And if you do have the ability to tie your industry or your area of expertise into things a little bit more significantly, then do it.
Mhm.
There are a lot of things that happen with local business owners. So that was my primary audience. That became such a great opportunity for
Mhm.
me to talk about things that were more political or even, again, like we talked about, they're really spiritual.
Mhm.
They're under the guise of politics,
Right.
but these are things that were impacting my target market. And I was speaking up on behalf of my target market. I was talking about the fact that these local businesses were closed while strip
Mm.
clubs and liquor stores were still open during the pandemic. That's something that I can talk about, good versus evil again, but
Mhm.
it's directly correlated to the audience that I serve. And so if you can find those opportunities, whether it's
Mhm.
a bill that's coming up that impacts your target market
Mhm.
or something that you personally have an experience with that you want to talk about, or again, just an event that's happening in the country or in the world, try and tie it back to that target market first. And then it feels like it belongs as business content. So,
Correct.
also what you were saying about the personal brand, it's so great to be able to use those personal profiles that
Mhm.
for most of us are for business. Like my
Yes.
personal Facebook profile, that's one of the places where I do most of the content in this regard. And I see my personal Facebook profile as a business tool. I
Yes.
don't really care that much for social media as a whole, but for business, it's obviously amazing. And so it feels very natural when you
Mhm.
are using those more personal platforms for those conversations. You can still do it on your business pages, but again, that's when you want to be a little bit more careful about weaving it in directly to your target market and things that have some sort of direct correlation to what it is that you do or sell.
Yes, and you can be very creative with your personal profiles and personal brand because it's about you. And so this is fantastic, Allie. I didn't expect you and I to be so aligned on so many things. I want to say thank you for taking the time to come here. And I am sure that people listening to this are going to take away so much out of it, especially people who might be on the fence about Jesus. That's my whole point, right? How people who may be somewhat curious, or maybe they had church hurt and fell out, and maybe, just all kinds of people out there. You never know what you say that is just going to resonate with somebody. And you'll never know it. You'll never know it, but until, you go to the other side. And I wanted to ask you, how can people find you? What are your links?
Yeah, so they can go to alliebloyd.com. That's ALLIEBLOYD.com. I have a YouTube channel. Allie Bloyd is my YouTube. And then you can find me at either Allie Bloyd or Allie Bloyd Media on almost any other platform. So Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, those are kind of the ones that I spend a little bit more time on. But I would love to connect with you guys in any way that works best for you. Would love to hear from you, hear your feedback on this, and just hopefully anything I've said has encouraged you to do something that will advance the kingdom. Again, I don't claim that I'm like the perfect person in doing this. I've tried to get in where I can. I want to do what I can. There's always more that I can do. But all it takes is just taking that first step and not letting the enemy plant fear in your heart that speaking up is going to hurt you, because you could be hurt in a variety of ways, whether you do it or not. So at least do it, that it's for a reason. So start small. And then if you feel led, then just follow that calling and just do something one step at a time. And you'll already feel so much better about what you're able to accomplish through those blessings that you already have.
And follow people like Allie and myself. We're out there posting, get ideas. I've had people tell me, wow, what you're doing is really inspiring me to know ways of how I can, say what I want to say about my journey with God. And, just finding people who are aligned with you and seeing what they're posting. Again, if you choose to use social media, is a great way to figure it out. So I want to thank Allie Bloyd she's a very busy woman and she took the time to be here today. I want to say thank you, Allie, and to all our listeners who listen to the Influential Christian Entrepreneur. I want to thank you for being here week after week with us. And if you're a Christian CEO or executive seeking to authentically integrate your faith and professional brand on LinkedIn to inspire others, further God's kingdom, and leave a legacy, like we've been talking about, personal stories, but you don't want to write them yourself, you can get a hold of me at francineSinclair.com or hello@francineSinclair.com. Thank you, everybody. We'll be back again next Tuesday with another amazing guest. Goodbye. If you're a Christian business leader or executive, I invite you to work with me to create a faith-driven personal brand on LinkedIn that will empower you to navigate the intersection between faith and business. Feel free to contact me directly at hello@francineSinclair.com. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for listening today. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast and don't forget to follow me, Francine Sinclair, on Facebook or LinkedIn. See you next week for a new episode.